Emily is here from the Port of Seattle. If Emily, you want to say a word or two?
So I just want to say thank you to all of you who are taking the time out of your day to be learning all of these things. Last time we had a great show of support and attendance for our Port of Seattle Department's presentation. PTAC presented, as well as the SBA. I know those materials are available. If not, please drop Leslie or I a chat and we'll get that to you. And we've got a few other sessions coming down the line, which we're really excited about. Marketing strategies is next Tuesday. And then do want to put another plug in for our in-person networking that is occurring at Tabor 100 on October 4th. So just wanted to make a little bit of those announcements, and thank you so much again for attending, and thank you to Leslie at PTAC and Aisha, Tiffany and Andrew at SBTRC for all of their help putting all of this together. So without further ado, I'll turn it either back to you, Leslie, or Kevin Grossman. I see you're on the line, ready to go for SBDC.
Hi, well, thanks. Leslie, did you want to?
I just want to recognize my boss, Tiffany Scroggs from Washington PTAC. Tiffany, if you're up and about, if you'd like to say a word or two, go ahead and we'll give you a minute, and then we'll move on to Kevin if he doesn't mind holding in line for a second.
Yeah, if you were going to call me, I was going to say what Emily said, which is we hope to see more of all of you on the virtual trainings and then in person on the 4th. So I won't take up any other time other than use Washington PTAC next time you are bidding on a proposal, and we will walk through all the best practices that Matthew talked about today and help you be responsive and hopefully win. Thanks.
Thanks, Tiffany. All right, Kevin, you're up. And so Kevin is in South King County in the Auburn Center for the Small Business Development Center. And I think that he has a really great presentation for us today. So Kevin, you're up.
So so I sent you the slides. Do you want me to go ahead and share my screen, or?
Yeah, you can go ahead and share.
All right, I'm never sure who wants to share. I mean, yeah, okay, good. I will do that. Let's see.
Okay, you're good to go.
That one, how's that? Oops, hold on. Where's my share button?
All right.
All right, you can see the slide. So, hi, thanks for an opportunity to chat with you. My name's Kevin Grossman. I'm a business advisor with the Small Business Center at Green River College. We're part of a statewide network that Small Business Development Centers, and the Small Business Development Center program overall is a national program. My particular background is mostly in commercial real estate and finance. I've helped a lot of businesses buy buildings, build buildings, finance buildings, that kind of thing. My work with the Small Business Development Center is much broader than that. And a lot of what we're providing is kind of a sounding board, an informed sounding board for you to take advantage of. So I'm going to go through a number of slides that are just kind of an overview of our program, just so you kind of understand the backdrop. And then I'll share a few stories with you about some businesses that we've helped that hopefully will, relate to some of the folks in the audience. And then open it up for questions and, any questions that you've got. Let's see. So we're, our mission to is really just to help you succeed, right? From a policy standpoint, the funding that we get is all about helping small businesses to grow. It creates jobs, it creates wealth in the community, it supports the community. And so that's where the funding commitment comes from. We really like to be sort of a broad, whereas PTAC is very specific around government contracting, and we refer people to PTAC frequently. We're more of a generalist kind of organization. There's 35 of us around the state that are certified advisors, and I come out of finance and real estate, but we've got ex-bankers, we've got marketing people, we've got operations people, we've got people that are really good at export. A lot of us are pretty heavy on the finance side, just because we've noticed over the years that that seems to be a sticking point for a lot of companies. Not that folks don't understand the basic numbers, but sometimes as you're trying to look at your numbers, project into the future, or decide what additional kinds of contracts you want to expand into, sometimes you need to be able to look at the numbers more strategically than just how much cash is in the bank. We're all over the Washington network is all over the state. There's 35 of us. As you can see, there's a concentration in the Puget Sound. We can help people from all over the state. So we're kind of a hybrid. So usually we end up working with folks that are close proximity to us initially. But if there's things, for example, if you're working with me and there's something that you need that's outside of my wheelhouse, I'll hook you up and we'll co-advise with somebody else in our network around the state that has deeper expertise in whatever area it is that you're looking for some additional advice on. The program's been around for a long time. We started in 1980, and there's 62 groups around the country. They're mostly population driven. So all of Washington State is one center. Some of the bigger states, like California, I think that's 4 different, they're broken up more. For Washington, we're actually nested as a program under WSU. Go Cougs, don't know who's on the call, but I happen to be a Husky myself, but at any rate, the Office of Research is a portion of WSU that kind of looks at, things like technology monetization and licensing and things like that. So we're kind of a natural fit under Brian Kraft as far as our role is just to help small businesses thrive. By the way, small business might sound like kind of an odd title when you realize that from the Small Business Administration's perspective, that's anybody under 500 employees. Most of my clients aren't near 500 employees. Most of our clients are much earlier stage. Let's see, so we get from the SBA, we get about $2.5 million a year. And the SBA's, the way the program was designed is they want us to be accountable to our local funders. So we get match money from the economic development officers of the counties, from chambers, from cities, and we have a number of us are hosted at other higher ed institutions. I'm at Green River College, Highline's got a place, South Puget Sound got it, Western's got it, and those are mostly colleges that already had small business advising in place prior to the creation of this program. So when the program was created, it's like, well, are we now competing with WSU or, and WSU, they're smart, and they were like, no, we're partnering with you, right? And so we're kind of all under that umbrella. Let's see, so we've got obviously the Small Business Administration, they're 50% of our funding. WSU, the individual entities on here contribute kind of a blend of cash and like kind. So for example, in Green River, we've got conference rooms and staff support and offices and things like that. So, when we're working with clients, if I've got a client that wants to have a team meeting, for example, I can provide a classroom for them so that they can get everybody together at the same time and facilitate a meeting. Anyway, we've got it's a nice range and kind of varies, in different parts of the state. But like I said, for you, if you're a client of ours, we can access the resources of all 35 advisors for you, regardless of who your original point of contact is. That way we can kind of flesh out the team to make sure that you're getting expertise that you need for whatever particular issue or opportunity is up for you. So what we do is one-on-one advising, and it's confidential. It's actually in the the legislation that created us specifies that all the information we get from clients is confidential. So, you know, if you share with us that you're doing some stuff that needs some correcting, you don't have to worry about it going to, you know, some federal agency who's going to come down on you because they don't get it. It's the data is confidential. Any reporting that we do to funders, which we do, because funders like to know what we're doing, all aggregated data. So you don't have to worry about any particular company's name being identified on anything. And if we're serving in an area that has very few people in a particular NAICS code, we will bump it up to, you know, like maybe a 3 or 4 digit instead of a 6 digit, just so that we can preserve the confidentiality of the data that we're aggregating. We see ourselves as connectors. We provide technical assistance, but I would say as much as anything, we provide a sounding board and a resource connectors. Our particular business center out of Green River, we have 2 PTAC and 2 Small Business Development Center advisors, and we work really closely together with clients mutually and handing them back and forth, because there's different issues that come up at different times. In most parts of the state, there are multiple service providers that have the motivation of, you know, helping small businesses thrive. And so, you know, we keep on top of that and often either collaborate with them, or sometimes they're just better at a particular point in the company's development. And so we'll, you know, refer them out and pass them along. We don't, sometimes people want us to tell you what to do, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to ask questions, to understand, to help you process so that you're making informed decisions that fit you, because it's your business, right? I mean, we're just outside people. We're third parties that are trying to be helpful. And so I think sometimes people get frustrated because they want an answer, and I'm like, you know what? It's not my business. It's your business, and I'm here to help you. That you can process so that you can make a decision that you're comfortable with, and you know, feel like you've gone through that thinking process and research process. Sometimes people think that we're like consultants where we'll actually write a business plan or something. We don't do that. We can connect you with people that do that, but we're more like, we'll review it and we'll say, hey, what about this? What about that? Have you considered this? What are you trying to say here? So we provide feedback, but we don't actually write a business plan. We don't actually put together, you know, pro forma for you, but we'll review what you've got and we'll encourage you. If we feel like you're missing pieces that are important, we'll point you in the right direction and get you connected. Get in a number of meetings with clients, with their accountants, to help them get to the right questions. Because sometimes accountants, some accountants are really wonderful at strategy, and some accountants are more focused on getting taxes done and not necessarily how that kind of fits into the big picture of the owner's aspirations for their company. And that's not bad, by the way. I mean, you need people that are tactical and get stuff done. But sometimes we can be helpful at being in an additional set of ears and eyes with you to help make sure that you're getting the information that you need. Sometimes the professionals know stuff that they're just not used to clients asking. And so then, you know, it's not something they necessarily offer, even though they're quite capable of providing that information. So we're a resource both for connecting you to resources, but also helping you better utilize resources that you already have on your team. So here are some of the things that we do. You know, planning, sometimes when people say planning, some people have an aversion to business planning. And I think it's because, you know, if you see a big plan and, you know, it's not necessarily easy to read. And you kind of wonder, like, who's this for, right? Is it just for the lender? I don't know a lot of detail about everybody on this call, so maybe everybody on this call is already doing this, but I really find it valuable for clients to do what I would call pragmatic planning, which is for you. So writing down, getting stuff out of your head and down on paper, ideally collaboratively with some of your senior team members, as a practical operating tool for you as far as how you're going to move your business forward. And so where we fit into that is basically, one, encouraging you to do it at all. And two, a lot of times we're useful as a sounding board in that process to help you go through that, so that you've got actionable, bought into, written, bearable, understandable plans of attack for how you can move your business forward, to where you're trying to get it to. I spend a lot of time looking at financial statements, and I guess for me, a big part of it is helping people tell the stories behind the numbers. When I look at an income statement and a balance sheet, what comes up for me instantly are a whole bunch of questions about what's behind the numbers and what does that point to as far as how the company's running and where the company maybe should be going. So understanding the stories behind the financial statement is really useful to business owners. Some people just, that's not their thing, which is fine, as long as, but I would encourage you to find somebody around you who you trust that can be that, that person to help you kind of look at your numbers with that sort of critical eye. And if you are the person that already does that, sometimes it's just nice to have a second set of eyes and ears to with you as you go through your numbers. Say, hey, am I missing something? Or, as kind of an outsider who's not, up to their ears in my particular subniche of a business, what questions would you see or ask? Because I'm involved with a lot of businesses across the board. And so sometimes I'll notice things that and be able to make connections for clients that are really kind of outside of their particular niche. A lot of our work is the SBDC is helping people get capital. People think we're the SBA loan folks. We're not really, but some people think that because the SBA pays for part of us. But we are helpful at helping people put together the narratives and the helping guide you through putting together the narrative and the numbers so that you're well prepared to get the funding that you need. Managing cash flow is key. I've got a number of clients right now that they're growing like crazy, which is good news, bad news. The good news is they're growing and they've been able to manage their margins pretty well. The challenge is that if you don't understand the impact to your cash flow of growing that fast, especially if the growth is from shifting markets, like doing public work, like what the PortGen project's about. If you started out smaller and you're doing private stuff and you're getting deposits from your customers, and now you're doing government work where you've got to get the contract and you've got to mobilize and you've got maybe some equipment that you've got to lease and you got to do all this and then get to the point where you hit your milestone for billing, and then you bill, and then you got to wait till the prime pays you, and maybe the prime's waiting until you get the right paperwork in place so that they can get paid from the government entity. And all of a sudden you can rack up 30 or 60 days. I mean, most of it shouldn't be that long. Well, that may be true, but it's not unusual for it to stretch out longer than you had anticipated. So if you haven't budgeted for that cash flow, if you don't have a line of credit or some reserved cash or some other method of bridging that, I've seen more companies have difficulty because of bad cash flow than because of bad margins. Because I think people understand intuitively you have to manage your margins, but I think sometimes that cash flow impact of growth is something that isn't necessarily intuitive to people. We help people buy and sell businesses. Maybe you've got some strategic, maybe you've got some pieces that you'd like to add to your business, and then you get to decide, well, should I develop it or should I buy it? Likewise, you might be, depending on your scale and what your goals are for your business, maybe there's a point at which you'd like to sell, and then it's like, well, is it a financial buyer or a strategic buyer? And so, we can help be the sounding board to help you navigate down that path. We have people that are really good at import-export. Well, primarily exporting is the focus, but obviously it's the flip side of the coin. So they are also pretty good about helping people that want to do importing. But obviously our goal, our task from the SBA and from our local funders is to create jobs here and to create wealth here. And so, we're much more excited about companies that want to export, services, it could be products, it could be all sorts of things. And we have a lot of agriculture work, of course, being Washington State. So we help people do that. We have access to information on what's going on in the market. We have a team of MBAs over at WSU who we can submit a request to about your business and say, hey, they're curious about what is the background information on their industry segment, sort of broadly, right? And they do a really good job. They the narrower the question, or the more specific the question, the better, the more useful the output. Right? But sometimes people just want a general question. That's okay too. But it's really nice to have access to them. It's one of the advantages of being nested under WSU. Business systems and record keeping. I noticed that when companies are growing fast, a lot of times, the systems that you had in place, the sheet that I used to bid projects when I was doing $50,000 projects is not the same that I need when I'm doing $500,000 project. And so I like the fact that Matthew hit on a lot of great points. I'm glad I logged in early and listened to that. The notion of lessons learned, right? It's like how continuously improving your processes so that your processes are keeping up to the scale as your business grows. I know a lot of folks, when they get into government contracting, there's some really cool opportunities, but if you haven't sort of thought through how to adapt your systems to some of the larger opportunities, larger opportunities can also be larger threats if you haven't really thought through those pieces. And this is where the PTAC folks and us, at least in our little shop at Green River, we work together a lot because it's, a lot of times we have people that want to do more government contracting, which PTAC is really good at helping people figure that out. And a lot of times the PTAC counselors will say, well, this is great, and maybe you need some more help, sort of making sure that you have the pieces in place so that you don't end up getting a big government contract that you miss some pieces on that end up hurting your company because you missed some pieces on it. And so there's a good working back and forth of those people. Getting and keeping customers, gosh, that's sort of business 101. I think sometimes people, as they look at government contracting, and think, well, it's kind of schematic and all that, right? It's all sort of perfunctory. And my observation, I'm not a government contracting expert, but my observation is that even in the government contracting world, relationships are really important. And having, a good track record, knowing, if the people have some sense of who you are, it never hurts. It never hurts. Cost-cutting strategies. Obviously, everybody's dealing with inflationary costs right now. Market has some interesting challenges going on. So, how do you pay attention to what your costs are, and also in context, because there are some costs are more important than other costs, and some costs you really need, right? If it's like if your business is struggling, marketing probably isn't where you're cutting your cost, or marketing efforts. You know what I mean? It's just, so you have to give some thought to where you're cutting and what the trade-offs are of that, but making sure that you keep your margins up. Recruiting. So the HR side isn't my area of depth, but we have a number of people within the Washington SPDC that are really, really good at that. They're SPRM, senior folks, and really have thought about this for a long time. I will say that being nested at a community college and having some background in leadership at other community colleges around the state, I know that they're a great resource if you have a team that you need to move forward, on some stuff. They can custom create, depends on the scale of your business, but a lot of times they can custom create training programs for businesses. I know, for example, the guy that runs our continuing ed department, that's corporate education things, where he'll group together 2 or 3 manufacturers that are looking for the same ISO certification process, that none of them individually have enough employees to be able to really afford it, but they kind of need to in order to be competitive. And so sometimes they're even competitors, employees sitting next to each other going through the certification, but it's a nice way of aggregating the need for the training and providing it in a way. Plus the state's got money for that. So if you need something like that, it's worth talking to the people that do the corporate education and the continuing ed work at the community college. I know we're not supposed to call it community college, but I still call it that. That's near you, because a lot of times they know how to access funding from the state to help you pay for that additional training and certification stuff that you need in order to help your business stay competitive and be more competitive. Let's see. We're talking about training. So I think what clients seem to like about us and about the kinds of training that the community colleges do, and obviously there's some organizations out there like AJAC that do a lot of that kind of stuff that they're kind of with and complementary to the colleges, where you can get, they're very practical, right? They're very much about specific skills to help specific businesses get specific results that they want. So it's not sort of academic, give them to us for 3 years and we'll send you back somebody with a certificate. Or like, we'll package up not we, the SBDC, but the community and technical college folks and the workforce training folks. They have some really cool stuff that I don't do directly, but I can connect, with the people at the SBDC are really good about connecting you if you don't already have connections yourself with those kinds of organizations. This is kind of an old picture. This is from 2019. And we've actually, like many of you may have experienced, had some turnover. So about 25% of this group is moved on and doing different things. Some of them, a lot of retirements too. A lot of us have, kind of on the gray-haired side of things. Most of the people that are advisors in Washington State have MBAs. A lot of us have owned our own businesses, raised money, had to make payroll, those kinds of things. Experiences that make us good sounding boards for you, because you've had to worry about payroll, you've had to worry about getting business, you've had to worry about, competitive issues. And I think sometimes having a sounding board who's been in that role, maybe not in your industry, probably not in your industry, but just as a business person in general, it can be nice. We've got some people that come out of consulting, but most of the people come out of industry, and so which is nice, because then a lot of times I can find other advisors. We can kind of search across the 35 folks and find somebody that can really help if you need some technical input, or if you need a sounding board that's really actually understands your particular niche of the business. The more global stuff would be where a lot of us go. There's a lot of, as you're probably finding out, or knew already, there are a lot of different resources out there. I think COVID just lit up the funding stream for small business. And so there are a lot of organizations out there that are available to help. Some of them are niche, some of them are new to the table. They all have really good intentions. And I think for you, it's important to know about the SBDC, and that we make sure that even though everybody comes with a certain amount of skill sets to the table when they get hired, we also make everybody go through a certification process. It's got a dozen modules that really, we want to make sure that everybody that you would come in contact with in our organization has the skill sets to be able to help you, and knows enough about different areas to realize when they're outside of their depth and to reach out to people in the network that have the depth so that you're always getting the help and the level of expertise that you need at that particular time. So we do provide measurable outcomes, which is, I think, probably more important to funders than it is you. But I think from your perspective as a potential SBDC client, what's important to know is that we're accountable. We want, not only do we want you to do well, but we want you to do well in measurable things. Employees, increased sales, new loans for new equipment, new rounds of equity if you're in a business that is in that kind of a mode. So we want to be, we're accountable to our funders for that kind of thing. We do that. Client demographics, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, just, but, if you look at this, it probably won't surprise you. I guess what I'll say about this, and then we'll move on, is that we're working hard to figure out how to do a better job of reaching out to communities and people and business owners that maybe we haven't connected as well with in the past. I think historically the SBDC has been a little bit of the old boys network where, although we have a lot more women advisors now than men. But, if a business owner is busy doing their business, they might not be part of the chamber or the Rotary or whatever. And so, they might not be on the local city's economic development newsletter. And so, we're working harder to try to figure out how do we reach out better. And so that's the reason I'm here today. It's just to, let you know that we're here. We don't want to be a best kept secret. We want you to go, oh, maybe maybe one of those SBDC folks can help us. And so we're working on this. We work with a lot of people. Some people we're able to, help them and send them on their way. And that's really all they need is kind of, some redirection or some connections, and that's it. And we have other clients that I've got some clients I've been working with for 4 years, ever since I started, where we get one project done and then they bring it to the next one, and it's really been fun to watch them grow. I've got one contractor who, when I first met them, their run rate was about 600,000, and they're going to close out this year at 3.5, and their margins are back up to where they needed to be, and I've been able to help them get the credit facilities they needed for that growth, and the bonding increases they needed, and all that good stuff. We're available to assist you with kind of, if you want us as spot help, we can do that. If you want us for longer term engagement, where we're kind of helping you through a series of things toward your aspirations for your company, we're happy to do that. Let's see. So that's probably I guess these slides are basically just to let you know that we're pretty effective. We actually help our clients get a lot of loans done, get a lot of investment, get a lot of growth done. Would a lot of it happen without us? Yeah, a lot of it would have happened without us, but I think we help people get more, and I think a lot of times we smooth out things. A lot of times we can provide, your loan gets rejected from the bank, and the loan and the person you're working with at the bank isn't very good about sharing with you why the underwriter didn't like it. Sometimes we can interpret that and help you reposition and retell your story better, so the next time you get approved instead of the rejection letter. Some banks are really good about explaining their decision, but a lot of lenders aren't. It's kind of like you throw it into the black hole of the underwriter, and sometimes the person you're working with may not fully understand why you got kicked out. Anyway, we've got kind of a broad range of skill sets, and our mandate is very broad. It's just helping you get money, helping you grow your company, helping you hire people, helping you create wealth for yourself and your employees by that growth. So some of the stories, just to kind of tie it back to, oh, wait a minute, I think Leslie, am I supposed to be wrapped, or are we okay for a minute?
We're okay for a minute. So
All right.
go ahead.
Well, so I already talked about cash flow, so I want to talk about that. Debt restructuring, as you grow, a lot of times you end up with some really funky situations on equipment loans, or, maybe you got in a big pinch and you used some asset-based lending at some point that you never really cleared off your books, or anyway, we can come in and be a fresh set of eyes to help you look at your balance sheet. And a lot of times there's opportunities to improve that, especially if you're looking at either increasing or getting a new credit line. It's nice to be in the process of doing that. Your lender, you look really smart to your lender, and it makes your lender more comfortable helping you get to the next level as far as you need from them. The staffing and retention obviously has been a hot topic. I think the area that I've noticed a lot in the last couple of years is more people are spending time on developing their team and holding on to their team, and not, there's a lot of conversation about recruiting, which is great, but at some point, half of the challenge is keeping them and training them and finding opportunities for them to grow with you as well. The marketing, that's not I'm pretty good at B2B stuff, but when it's, business to retail or business to government, I'm quick to get other people on the line. And I think what you'll find, is you might not all be you're probably not all in Auburn, which or Kent, down here where I am. So anyway, there's lots of it's around, and whoever you end up connecting with through the SBDC, we're all good about reaching out to each other to make sure that our clients get taken care of. The systems piece, I suspect most of the people on this call are growing and doing this PortGen because you want to grow more and get government contracts or do more government contracts. So when you're doing that, the systems become really critical, right? It's like you're not gonna, if you're graduating from a hang glider to an airplane, you don't use the same checklist. It's just that it's both flying, but it's very different. And so as you grow, be sure to pay attention to that, and don't charge forward without checklists. A lot of times you can grow a company and be pretty profitable at a small scale by just using your gut all the time. But as you scale, and especially when you start doing government projects, because they're not going to have a sense of humor if you forgot something on your bid, as you're replacing them. So anyway, that's sort of my story, and I'm sorry I went over a couple minutes. My email is usually the best way to get a hold of me because I'm usually on back-to-back Zoom meetings. I've got a calendar app so that it makes it easy, so we don't have to do phone tag or email tag to pin down a time where I can help you. Whether it's me or somebody else within the SPDC, doesn't matter. If we can help you, we as a group, I think you'll like whoever you run into with our group. And like I say, we're all really good about cross collaborating when we need to shore up, experts, make sure that you're getting help. So I don't know if there's any time for any. Kind of ran up against the clock.
Yeah, we do have time for questions if anybody has anything they want to ask Kevin, or any thoughts or comments.
There's one in chat from Nicole Hansen. She says, we recognize that we are fortunate to, it just went away. We recognize that we are fortunate to have access to all of this free support. Can you clarify what SBDC offers versus economic development versus SCORE versus Ascent versus 8A versus PTAC? And I'm just going to add versus SBDRC. How can we clearly differentiate which tool we should be using and when? There's so much training, so much free coaching, ...
That is a really good question. Andrew, thank you for reading that. I apologize, I wasn't keeping track of the chat. So that is a good question, and it's actually an interesting challenge. The City of Kent hired the National Development Council to do an environmental scan of all the resources that are available to small businesses. And so what I would say is SBDC first of all, we're free. Our funders pay for us. And so we're just, our charter is just to help you. And we never have to send you a bill. And we're really good about resource connecting. you know, different groups have different areas of emphasis. And so I guess the only way I could answer that really is there is a really broad universe of possible help out there for you, which is think about what it is you're looking for and go to the websites and see, you know, does their mission and does their kind of their range of services resonate with you? Does it seem like it's going to be a fit? And then I guess I would add one piece, and I encourage people to do this with accountants and attorneys and, you know, bankers and everybody else, which is when you talk to the people at whatever organization you decide to start with asking, do you connect with them? Because at the end of the day, there's a trust and relationship issue that is as important. The technical competence is critical, but there's also a piece of do you like, you know, can you relate to this person, right? Do they have a style you like? You know, I tend to be more Seattle style. My cohort came out of Chicago, and she's very direct, and we have very different styles. And sometimes we move clients back and forth because the other one might be a better fit. So, and I know it's kind of a political answer to your question, but I'm not sure. There's so many good resources out there. I'm not sure how else to respond. Let's see. You said there were. Yeah, that's
You're coming to us. Oh, did you open it up to questions?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Mickey Ross. When it comes to the focus of this particular day, a lot of it had to do with this proposal that we have to hand in so we can win a contract, so we'll have that revenue coming in. How much could you contribute to that cost proposal that we would be sweating bullets over to get in right? Would SBDC be a help?
Yes, is the short answer. One of my favorite, I know we're not supposed to have favorites, right, like kids, but one of my favorite clients has been growing like crazy. Actually went through PortGen a few cycles back and has just been growing like crazy. And the reason she got connected with me is because they were taking on some pretty big projects, and there was some uncertainty about whether their pricing was right. And so we just went through their income statements, we went through how they were pricing their projects, and we went through what their cost structure was. And I didn't tell them how to price. What I did is I walked them through and I helped them develop a spreadsheet so that they really had a good grasp on all the pieces. And I also kind of strongly encourage, let's put it that way, to get a little more, to look backwards at some of the projects they've done and which ones made them money, which ones didn't make them money, and distill that down so that they made sure that the learnings from some of their smaller past projects were incorporated in their thinking for going after some of these larger projects going forward. Unfortunately, it's time consuming, but it prepared them to go after some very substantial projects. And the way they were approaching it when they first met me probably would have cost them their home. And so, I mean, I don't mean that to sound over dramatic. Just, you know, if you price things based on when you were, you know, a $500,000 company, it's probably different than what you need to do if you're going after $1 million project 6 times a year. And so, you know, so the SBDC folks can help. Well, not all of us, but most of us. And if you happen to connect with somebody that's close to you that doesn't have that expertise, they'll bring in somebody that's got the finance background to help ask you those questions and help you navigate through that. It'll increase your confidence about understanding your numbers and how you're putting your pricing together. I'm glad you asked that question because that shows you're thinking about the right thing.
Thank you.
If I could chime in here and combine Mickey's question with Nicole's question, is that PTAC's good at helping you find the opportunities and understanding the bid process. And then when we ask you little pokey questions like, are you confident that your price covers all of your costs and your, or do you have the cash flow to manage this contract if you do win? And if the eyes get wide and the blood pressure goes up, then that's when we know we need to bring in a Kevin or another business advisor to help that side of your business. Because the last thing we want to do is help you win a government contract with the port or anybody, and then have you not be able to perform profitably. So that's where the two programs work nicely together.
Yeah, and we work together closely. Thank you for that, Tiffany. You know, it's one of those things that if you're going after bigger projects and you need an increased credit line, if you know it ahead of time, and if you've done the thought so that you can communicate that effectively with the bank, then your chances of getting an increase in your credit line or getting a credit line, because in some cases people haven't needed one until they started expanding. If you go to the bank ahead of time, you're much better shape than if you win the contract and then realize you don't have the cash to float that cash flow gap that often comes with those kinds of contracts. The banks are much less receptive when you're already in a bind. But if you tell them ahead of time, look, you know, we've got a good track record of maintaining our margins, we've got a good track record of growth, we have systems in place, we understand what we're doing, and we understand that if we get this contract, we're going to need this. And if you do that ahead of time, your chances are pretty good about getting maybe not everything you want, but at least, you know, a good chunk of it. But if you wait till you're already in a bind, it freaks the lenders out, and they're very hesitant to jump in when you're already in that bind, even though your story is basically the same, but the timing makes a big difference to how the lenders respond.
Well, one of the things that I always keep in the back of my mind is to not go after money, because the predator lenders really do look real good up front, but the details are where they fall apart. And that's when I just feel that when you can't talk to me comfortably about the details, and those details have interest rates that are way different than the front end, it's when you come into a potential issue.
Yes, your caution flags should be wagging, you know, like all over, going crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like talking, someone who can really speak to the financials, but are you going to recommend predatory lenders to me?
No.
Or
Well,
are you going to give me the best possible look at a very comfortable situation for my business to be sustainable?
Well, the comfort level depends on how aggressive you're trying to grow. But I can tell you my personal bias, and I think it's probably the bias of most of my fellow advisors, is if you're stretching so hard that you're starting to go to lenders that have fees that are so high that they're embarrassed to tell, you know, that they're kind of hiding them. You know, asset-based lending, factoring has its place. There are times when, but you hit the nail on the head when you said you need to understand the details. And if the lender can't, if you don't understand the details, you know, that's scary. I mean, then you're starting, that's when you start to get into the my house is at risk kind of thing. Planning ahead, and I know sometimes it's hard, but sometimes the proposal requests come up maybe more quickly than you might have anticipated or something. And but planning ahead, talking with your banker, keep having a relationship with the business banker that you work with, letting them know where you're trying to grow, helping them understand that you're on top of it, having a relationship with them. And I really encourage people to have relationships with more than one bank, because banks go through cycles, and sometimes banks love construction and sometimes banks don't love construction. And if your banker is in a I don't love construction, but that's what you need is a construction line, then you know you're kind of dead on arrival, and that's not helpful. But thinking ahead is key, and it's hard because it takes time and it takes effort, and you know everybody's busy running their business, but it's really important to carve out that time to do that so that you're prepared, so that you can get, you know, reasonable price money from a bank instead of expensive money that's got some, the thing that some of the predatory lenders do that's, I think, scariest is they'll quote an interest rate that isn't, I mean, it's high, but it doesn't on its surface, freak you out because it's not, it's not as bad as maybe some credit cards. But what they don't emphasize, and you may not realize unless you read the paperwork closely, is fees that they charge are pretty expensive up front, and the fees to renew the line are really expensive, and they have a very short fuse. So if you don't manage your cash flow super well, you can end up ending up in a situation where you're serially renewing that really expensive financing because you can't quite get it off the books. And that's when it gets really scary and really sad. Because a lot of times with some, I have helped some people get off of that treadmill, but it takes work. And frankly, it takes less work to plan ahead of time and avoid it in the first place.
I just stay away from all of that.
Yep. No, well, and with planning and with having good systems in place, lenders will help you. They want to loan you money. They just need to understand that it's a smart thing for them to do. I used to complain to my banker friends about, how critical they were and how much paperwork they had and stuff. And one of them finally sat me down one time and said, Kevin, look at it this way. The business owner has the upside of the aspirations of their business. They can make a lot of money. If I'm successful, all I get paid back is the interest rate on my loan. I don't have any upside. I just have the interest rate and, maybe a couple percent in fees at the front end. So he says, you're asking me to, act like I'm their partner. I'm not their partner. I'm their lender. If I was their partner, that'd be a different story. Anyway, it's very interesting. I remember that. I've remembered that ever since because it was like, oh yeah, lenders have they fit into the picture different. So it's on us to help them connect the dots so that you can get the good money instead of the expensive money. Thanks for asking that question. All right, I'm sensitive to the fact that we're already 15 minutes after I was supposed to. I try not to drag people out too far.
That's more than okay. You're providing so much information that would be kind of redundant coming from the rest of us, and you're fun to listen to. So
Thank you.
we've been talking about the SBTRC presentation that we were going to do after you, and I think the executive decision is that we're just going to do that next week. A little bit of run over, let everybody go early.
Why don't we just squeeze
we'll just hold off on our.
All right. Well, thank
Okay.
you. It was very kind of you to allow me to come and share, and I hope that that stories were useful and that you'll remember that we're a resource, and we want to help.
Okay, well, before you leave, Kevin, could you just pop your contact information into the chat?
Absolutely, yeah.
And we will thank all of our partners and everybody for participating today and let everybody get on to their business. But be sure to check out Kevin's email address. It's kgrossman@greenriver.edu. And I happen to know that that particular entity has some stellar resources. Housed there at Green River, Washington PTAC has an office there too. And it's a great local resource, for those of you in South King County.
Yeah,
So,
we're pretty biased, but we really like our PTAC counselors and we work really closely with them.
thanks, Kevin. All
Yeah,
right.
my pleasure.
So, Andrew, anything else that is on the agenda here?
I think we're just going to bump SBTRC to next week. And I want to thank Kevin again for presenting because I didn't mention it, but my son actually went to college at Green River. So I'm very familiar with the place. I love that campus. It's so beautiful over there. And all in all, every one of these agencies is such a gold mine and a resource. But yeah, we'll kick back SBTRC till next week again and then let everybody cut out a few minutes early. That should be all right. I want to say thanks to all our partners, though, between the PTACs, the SBDC, PTAC, SBDC, SBTRC. There's so many acronyms, so much acronym soup that you don't have to keep track of all of it. You just need to remember, call Kevin, call Leslie, call Andrew, call Tiffany, and it's a lot easier.
Yep.
But no, I think we're just going to cut it out here.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We will go ahead and stop the recording. And a big shout out though to Port of Seattle for hosting this and bringing us on board. So with that, to all, a good night, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Real quick, next week, I'm trying to remember all, we have Marketing Solutions by Andrew Ballard. Sound Transit will be available, and also Graham Ralston Law. Everything you ever wanted to know about contract law and were afraid to ask. So next week should be a really great opportunity to hear some more experts. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.